The Adventures of Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by a thick forest, there lived a sweet little girl named Red Riding Hood. She was called this because of the bright red cloak she always wore, which was a gift from her grandmother. Red Riding Hood was loved by everyone in the village for her kind heart and cheerful smile. One day, Red Riding Hood's mother called her over and said, "I have baked some fresh bread and made a basket of treats for your grandmother. She's feeling a bit under the weather. Would you be a dear and deliver this basket to her cottage deep in the forest?" Red Riding Hood eagerly agreed, knowing that her grandmother lived in a cozy cottage far away. "I will be careful, Mama," she promised. "I'll stay on the path and won't talk to strangers." Her mother nodded. "Remember, stay on the path and don't stray into the woods. It's a dangerous place for little girls like you." Red Riding Hood put on her red cloak, grabbed the basket, and set off toward her grandmother's house. As she walked through the woods, the birds chirped and the sun shone through the leaves, making the forest look peaceful and beautiful. But deep in the forest, there was a sly wolf who was watching Red Riding Hood from behind the trees. The wolf, who was always hungry and clever, thought to himself, "What a tasty treat this little girl might be. And her grandmother, too." The wolf stepped out of the shadows and approached Red Riding Hood. "Good morning, little girl," he said in a deep, friendly voice. Startled, Red Riding Hood looked up. "Good morning, Mr. Wolf," she replied politely, remembering her mother's advice to be respectful to strangers. "Where are you headed, my dear?" the wolf asked with a sly smile. "I'm going to my grandmother's house," Red Riding Hood said. "She lives deep in the forest, and I'm bringing her a basket of treats." The wolf's eyes gleamed with mischief. "How lovely," he said. "Why don't you pick some flowers for your grandmother along the way? I'm sure she'd love them." Red Riding Hood smiled at the suggestion. "That's a great idea, Mr. Wolf. I'll pick her some flowers." Without thinking, she strayed off the path and into the forest, picking beautiful flowers for her grandmother. Meanwhile, the wolf quickly ran down the path to Grandma's house, eager to carry out his plan. When he arrived, he knocked on the door. "Who's there?" Grandma called out from inside. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," the wolf said in a high-pitched voice, imitating the little girl's tone. "Come in, dear," said Grandma, not suspecting anything strange. As soon as the door opened, the wolf jumped in, quickly locked the door behind him, and before Grandma could react, he swallowed her whole. He then dressed in Grandma's clothes, put on her glasses, and climbed into bed, waiting for Red Riding Hood to arrive. Not long after, Red Riding Hood arrived at the cottage, holding a big bouquet of flowers. She knocked on the door and called, "Grandma, it's me, Red Riding Hood. I've brought you some flowers and a basket of treats." "Come in, my dear," said the wolf, in a soft voice that was pretending to be Grandma. Red Riding Hood opened the door and stepped inside. She was a little confused because everything seemed so quiet, but she entered the room and approached the bed. "Grandma, what big ears you have," Red Riding Hood said, noticing how much larger Grandma's ears looked today. "All the better to hear you with, my dear," the wolf replied, trying not to sound too obvious. "Grandma, what big eyes you have," Red Riding Hood said, stepping closer to the bed. "All the better to see you with, my dear," the wolf answered, grinning from ear to ear. "Grandma, what big teeth you have," Red Riding Hood said, now feeling a little nervous. "All the better to eat you with, my dear," the wolf suddenly roared, leaping out of the bed to grab Red Riding Hood. Just as the wolf was about to pounce, a brave woodcutter who had been walking through the woods heard the commotion. He rushed to the cottage and burst through the door with his axe in hand. He saw the wolf and knew exactly what had happened. With one swift swing of his axe, the woodcutter scared the wolf away. Red Riding Hood and Grandma were safe. Red Riding Hood hugged her grandmother tightly, and the woodcutter smiled, glad that they were both safe and sound. "Thank you so much, kind woodcutter," Red Riding Hood said. "I'll never stray from the path again. I've learned my lesson." From that day on, Red Riding Hood always stayed on the path and never spoke to strangers in the woods again. And as for the wolf, well, he learned that cleverness could only go so far. The forest was no longer a place of danger for Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother, and they lived happily ever after.